heaven helps. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
St. Thomas Aquinas,
Pray for us.
St. Pius X,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. There is a schema, a double schema, front and back, circulating. There are a few copies, perhaps short. Some of you, I don't know, some of you might have to share. Has everybody got it? Because the conference does depend to quite an extent upon the pretty picture and the nice colours. When I can set something out in nice colours, I begin to understand it. Until there's nice colours, brain doesn't function. So, the conference is about a book written by I think, the best theologian in the Society of Pius X, who's an Argentinian stationed down in Argentina. I was down there for 5 years in the seminary at the same time that he was. So I got to know him quite well, and I think he's very good. He's a very modest man, but he was working in Argentina's atomic program until the Americans bought the Argentinians off. Spent money, spent money to get the Argentinians to stop working on atomic weapons. But he was in that program. He's a scientist, and then he, a late vocation, but with a very good brain, and very modest, which is a great help to see straight. And he reads a lot. He wakes up every morning early in order to study, and he knows St. Thomas Aquinas very well, which is an unparalleled, an incomparable strength for thinking things, for analysing, seeing through to the basic reality. And that enables him, how it has enabled him, to read the modernists and to understand them. The modernists, and that's quite a feat, because the modernists hide what they really think until everybody is corrupted, and then they can come out in the open. But until until they win, it's trickery until they win. Then only then is it open. But they are delinquents, as frequently Father Calderon says in his book. He says, to have invented this argument, you had to be a good theologian. He says that there's several places. In others, when the modernists are formed Catholics who use their Catholicism to twist the faith. Terrible. And he says, these people knew what they were doing. He says in several places in his book. They knew what they were doing. They wanted to change the religion. Prometheus is the title, the religion of man. Prometheus was the Greek god, you may remember, who stole fire from heaven and gave it to mortals. And the gods punished him for that, nailed him to a rock. But Father Calderon must have thought, I'll just say Calderon, but it's always Father, in fact. Calderon must have thought that the modernists stole the true religion from heaven, from the church, from God, and trashed it with modern man, and trashed it to modern man, so that modern man will trash it. So it's the religion of man as opposed to the religion of God. And the great, I might say, the great strength of Calderon's book is that it's closely united. And what unites it is this, that man is taking the place of God. That God is being downgraded and man is being upgraded so that man takes the place of God. That's the uniting thread. Now his book divides into 4 parts. You've got 2 parts on the first side of your sheet and the parts 3 and 4 on the second side of the sheet. And that's worth explaining. You've got, firstly, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's all on the sheet, but it may be easier to see it by itself. First you've got the being, and then you've got action. And the great principle, the common sense and reality, is that action follows being. For instance, here I've got a desk, and this crayon is round, and the folder is not round, the folder is flat. If I tilt the table a little, oh no, I better take the cap off. If I tilt the table even a little, the crayon will immediately slide because it is round. So roundness of being results in rolling of action. The non-roundness of the folder means that it's only going to slide when I pull the table up rather more. So the action of the folder and of the crayon follows the being. Principle, action follows being. So he's going to analyze firstly what Vatican II was, and then what Vatican II did. 234. 234 is like the bricks of a building, and then the walls of the building. Oh, I suppose walls are spelled with an A. The walls, and then the building itself. That's again an absolutely reasonable sequence. So he's going to say what Vatican II did to man, what Vatican II did to the church, that's like the walls, and then what Vatican II does to the building, which is the religion. So he's going to say that Vatican II made a new man, like bricks. Bricks compose a wall. The new man builds a new church. A lot of new men make a new church. And then the new man and the new church make, in effect, a new religion. And it's the religion of man to replace the religion of God. So the structure of his whole book is really quite simple. You needn't get lost in the structure. Then, that you see in black, you see on page, the top, right to the far left, top of page 1 is the being of Vatican II, V2, halfway down the page. And then from then on you've got the action. The second side of it, you've got nothing but the action. Vatican II in action. And so you can see heavy black 1 is the nature of Vatican II, its being, the nature of its being. Heavy black 2 is the new man. Heavy black 3 will be the new church, and heavy black 4 will be the new religion. So side 1, being, and then new man. Side 2, new church, which is the longest section, and possibly the most difficult, possibly the most interesting. And then part 4 is like the conclusion, wrapping it up. It is a new religion. And that's what Catholics, a lot of Catholics sense without having to read books about it. We've been switched sold as to our religion. The true religion is gone and the new religion is taking place. I don't know what it's all about, but I sense it. Well, it's about replacing God with man. So no wonder there's a sense of new religion. Nature of Vatican II. That's part 1, the first half of the first page. You go from black to green, and you've got 3 sections. Definition, 4 causes, and then properties. In Thomism, if you want to get what a thing is, you define it. You start with definition. You define what you're talking about. Interestingly, Vatican II refused to define what he talked about. It wanted to remain in the vague. So it wanted new words which weren't defined. Archbishop Lefebvre said at one stage, look, okay, you guys want to not define in order to be able to reach modern man, okay. But look, let's have a second version, which corresponds to the first, which explains things in technical language so that we know exactly what we're talking about. So you've got the outreach to modern man plus technical precision. The Council Fathers said no technical precision. We don't want to be precise. We want to be free. We want to be not rigid, not tied down, not imprisoned. We want to float and drift in our minds and in our religion and in our lives. Freedom. It's a key point of Father Calderon. It's the key point of modern man. Definition, and he's going to lay out his thesis in those first 3 lines. This is where we're going, and it's where he goes. Then the 4 causes. That's classical philosophy of Aristotle, taken over by St. Thomas Aquinas and by the Church. And those 4 causes are, you see very faintly, like a chair. If you take the 4 causes of a chair, you've got the 4 causes. The purpose of the chair is to sit on. That's known as the final cause, or the end cause, the end purpose. What end you're going to, by what means. So the end cause, the end or the final cause is for the chair to sit on. The next is what is made out of, the material cause, and that is it's made out of, a chair is made out of wood, let's say. The third cause is the efficient cause, who or what effected, made, produced, created the effect we're talking about, and that is the carpenter in the case of the chair. And finally, the formal cause is what it actually is, and what it is of course, it is a chair. Therefore, the formal cause is a chair. So you've got the final, the material, the efficient, the formal causes. It's not really all that difficult. And those are he works out the 4 causes of Vatican II. And then the third section in green will be properties, outstanding properties, which help to describe and pin down the nature of the beast, so to speak. So, we start with the definition, just 3 lines, 3 points and 3 lines. Vatican II is a humanism. That's a key point of Calderon. It's one of the key words of the book. It's a humanism. In other words, a movement in favor of man. And he will say, he will describe European history as having been a series of humanisms from the Middle Ages onwards. The first of these humanisms was the Renaissance, putting the emphasis on man. The second will have been the Reformation. The third will have been liberalism. The fourth will have been liberal Catholicism and modernism. And each of them, each time, man was trying to glorify man. But Calderon argues, each time man wanted to glorify man, he got away from God. Now, Paul VI says, Vatican II was very much Paul VI. He was the ringleader. You know, he became Pope a year after the Council began in 1963, but he was absolutely teed up to become the next Pope. He was prepared for it because he suited the requirements of the New World Order. He suited the requirements of the we know who, the 2,000-year-old enemies of Christ, and they had him lined up, and they put him. They fired him off in 1963. He got elected, and he died in 1978 after he had contributed significantly to wrecking the church. And yet he had good intentions. He meant well. The way to hell is paid with good intentions. It's not enough to have good intentions. You've also got to have... What use is a mechanic, a garage mechanic, who means well, he wants to do the job, but he's completely incompetent. He doesn't know. He hasn't got the correct ideas, even maybe how a motor car works. He may want to do it, but he can't do it because he doesn't know. You've got to have the right, in order to do the right, to do the right actions, you've got to have the right ideas. Every action is preceded by some idea, if you think about it. You can't act without having some idea of what you're doing, what you're acting or what you want to act, how you want to act. So action goes in front of, action follows being, and it goes in front of the result. And the result depends not only upon good intentions in the action, but also upon good idea behind the action. So, humanism. Paul VI meant well, and what he meant was to make a new humanism which would not degrade God. So it's going to be basically humanism. We're going to basically follow in the line of the 4 or 5 humanisms that have led to the modern age, so that we will get through to modern man, because these 4 or 5 humanisms have made modern man. We want above all to get through to modern man. So we're going to change things in order to get through to modern man, which means who comes first, man or God? We're going to get through to modern man. And it's a tremendous temptation. And it's not all wrong, because you can't preach gospel to dogs and wolves. It's to human beings you preach the gospel. If you want to, and you want to get through with the gospel to man. And if you want to get through to modern man, then how far can you go along? How far can you give way, bend towards modern man without quitting God? It's like a person, imagine somebody on a stream, on the edge of a stream, on a bank. Here's a dangerous river, and here's a bank. How far can the man lean over without himself falling in? He's got to have one arm around a good solid tree. If he's got one arm around a good solid tree, he can lean over quite far. But if he lets go of the tree, he's in trouble. So, what does the church do? The church leans as far as it can without abandoning God. Paul VI leant as far as he could and further, and he fell in with modern man. And he let go of the tree, he let go of tradition, and that was the end of the success. That was the end of his effort to modernize the church. He fell into the river and he drowned with modern man. That's an argument. So, a humanism. The humanism is to reach man, but be careful putting man first. You may want to reach him fine, but you've got to hang on to God. Vatican II is the last, I'm reading in blue, is the last in a series of glorifications of man. The humanism is a glorification of man. But this time, supposedly Catholic, so this time it's going to be a humanism disguised, so that it's not just like all of the previous humanisms, it's going to be at least apparently still in favor of God. So it's going to be a humanism disguised, and disguised by the officials. This time supposedly Catholic because it was voted on by 2,000 bishops and imposed on the church by 2 popes. So Calderon says it's a humanism that's disguised as being still Catholic, and which is disguised by officials of the church and voted on and approved and imposed by officials of the church. So a whole lot of Catholics went along with modernism, with Vatican II, simply because it was the church officials who were saying, this is it. This is how we need to adapt the church to modern times. And since the priests were saying it, and the priests had a considerable prestige in the 1950s and before the council, and the popes had a considerable prestige up to and including Pius XII, so the Catholics went along with it, and only a few reacted immediately. This is false, this is wrong, this is false. But with time, the reaction built up, and so there appeared a Catholic tradition that grew into existence. With a few years after the council, we had the appearance of Catholic tradition. It was voted on by two-thirds. So you've got 3 elements: the humanism, disguised, and official. And that's the definition of Vatican II. What it basically was yet another humanism. Because man, after the Middle Ages, he's always been trying to, man is naughty. He's always been trying to get away from God and from his religion. Therefore, he's always been glorifying God, glorifying man. But the refined perversity of modern times is to disguise it as still being completely Catholic. That's a new one. Luther pretended that he was reforming the church, but he openly broke with it. The liberals pretend that they don't pretend they're reforming the church, but they're pretending that that liberalism is a better form of Christianity. Liberalism is Christianity without Christ, which is practically eanity. Christianity without Christ is eanity. Add an N and what you've got is inanity. So liberalism is inanity, but nevertheless it pretends that it's better than Christianity. It pretends that it still loves everybody. Love, love, love. Think of Disneyland. Love, love, love. The essence of Christianity is love, so liberalism is the essence of Christianity. Then liberal Catholicism again, people realize that liberalism is false, so we're going to make liberalism look Catholic. 19th century is getting subtle. And the subtlest of all is the 20th century, where our humanism is going to be completely Catholic, or going to pretend to be completely Catholic. We move on to the four causes. The purpose, which is, said Aristotle, the cause of causes, because what starts the making of a chair is I need something to sit on. I want something to sit on. The purpose kicks the other three causes into action. So the final cause is the most important. And here we've got, it subdivides in blue, the end, the means, and the grave error. Subdivides into three, I'm sorry, not four. The end, which is what the purpose is, the means to that end, and then the grave error. And this is pretty crucial, because the final cause of anything is pretty crucial. Okay, I read in blue, end. The purpose of Vatican II was to promote human dignity. We want to glorify man. We want to make man feel good about himself. We want to make modern man feel good about himself. Well, yeah. Does modern man deserve to be made to feel good about himself? The alarm is beginning to go off. The purpose of V2 was to promote human dignity, but without degrading God. The problem in all of the previous glorifications of man was that God had been degraded. So we're not going to degrade God. We're going to keep God good. We're going to put man above God, but God is still going to get a piece of the cake. Without degrading God, because all the previous humanisms had degraded God, supposedly, since the supposedly excessively God-centered Middle Ages. The idea of the new humanism is that, of all the humanisms, was to get away from the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages had given too much glory to God. There was too little glory for man. So we want to make another shot at humanism without degrading God. So God was supposedly excessively degraded by the Middle Ages, and so, what's the means to this end? Man being the supreme creature, God, then if we put man in the center, we will also give glory to God. So, it doesn't take long to see through that. Man is the product of God, yes. Man is the supreme product of God, together with the angels, yes, because the man and angels have reason, free will, and spirituality, which the other material creatures don't have. Along with the angels, yes, but the angels are out of view because they've had their day. They've made their choice. The good ones are in heaven, the bad ones are in hell. They're passive. They belong to the past. So the supreme creature that's left is man, because man has got reason that no other creature has. Yes. Or man has liberty. Actually, it's not man has reason, but man has liberty. There's a significant difference. Man has liberty. Therefore, if we glorify man, because he's the supreme product of God, then we're going to, by extension, glorify God. Well, here's God. Father, the triangle, Father, the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And here is man. So if we glorify man because he's a product of God, then we're going to glorify God. Excuse me, Almighty God is a little bigger than man. Just a little bit bigger than man. You glorify man, you're glorifying peanuts as far as Almighty God is concerned. Almighty man, all men together, all of mankind get put together in one basket, compared with God, with the infinite, of an infinite majesty, of an infinite greatness, an infinite being, an infinite goodness, an infinite beauty. You compare the basket with all human beings in it, compared with Almighty God, you're not getting much more than that. So if you're going to glorify God by glorifying man, well, you'll be lucky if you glorify just this part of God. But you're going to miss out on the whole of the rest of the God, which is infinite. God deploys a certain amount of his majesty and power in creating man, yes, but you pretend that the whole of God is in the creation of man? Nowhere possible. It's ridiculous. But that's the argument. The argument is, if we glorify the creature of God, we're going to glorify the Creator. You're going to glorify peanuts of the Creator, but you're not going to glorify the fullness of the Creator. That's obvious. So, man being the supreme creature of God, then if we put man in the center, we will also give glory to God. Grave error. But only God can be the central purpose of God and man. This is another error. God alone can be the central purpose of God and man. Well, if you put man in the center, then man is going to be the purpose of man. Man is going to become the purpose of man. No longer God the purpose of man, but man is going to be the purpose of man. Therefore, God alone can be the central purpose of God and man. So changing, man that changes, changeable and changeable, cannot be the purpose of the changeless God. The changeless God is infinite, he's the creator, he's the Alpha and the Omega, he's behind everything that is, he is the purpose of everything that is, including himself, he is his own purpose. Man, the tiny creature that man is, much tinier than on that schema, the tiny creature can't be the purpose of the infinite God. Come on. And God can't have any purpose other than himself. Because then, whatever it was that was his purpose would be perfecting him. In which case, God would be perfectible and needing perfection. But he's the perfect being. He's the perfect and complete and infinite being. He can't be completed or perfected by anything outside him. Nothing can give to him something that he hasn't already got. And positive anyway. Therefore, the idea of man being the purpose of God, which is kind of said by Vatican II in Gaudium et Spes. Man being the purpose of God is ridiculous. That's not even this argument. This is another argument. To put God, man, at the center of creation is ridiculous. God is at the center of creation. Therefore, changing man, changeable, mutable. Changeable man is, that something can change is a sign of its imperfection. God is perfect. Therefore God can't change. That's the teaching you know of the church. He can't learn anything. Nobody can teach God anything. Nothing can happen in the history of the world that he didn't know from eternity. Yes, it's true. God knew my name and my personality from eternity. And he loved me from eternity, which is why he created me. Gosh, hadn't thought of that. He knew my name from eternity. Wow. And then, I am to be his purpose. Doesn't follow. Therefore, God, not man, is at the center. Changing man cannot be the purpose of changeless God. Therefore, God, not man, is at the center of all creation. However, By the false modern philosophy of personalism, the human person can only be the end purpose and he can never be the means. Personalism is one of these stupid modern philosophies. It's the glorification of the person. It arose, like existentialism, out of the Second World War. The world is in ruins. All of the ideas, all of the value systems have been discredited. Fascism, communism, nationalism, ruins, ruins, ruins. Supposedly also Christianity's ruins. But it seemed to be. All the ideas are busted, coming out of the Second World War. The world is in ruins. Okay? So what is there still? There's still the purse. Purse. Forget about his ideas. Just the purse. He has 2 ears and 2 eyes. He has 2 arms. He's a purse. Wow. Glorification of the person quite independently of what's inside of us. Does that make sense? Not if I think about it. Just because he's a person, he's glorious. Well, in a certain sense, if I have eyes to see the glory of the creator, of the human creature, of God, yes. Like I discern that in the tramp, yeah. But if he's a drunkard, if he's made a mess of his life, a wreck of his life, what dignity does he still have? Just because he's a person, he's still, wow. The purpose of creation. Gosh, watch out. We're glorifying the creature instead of the creator. So the argument runs that man is the greatest creature, therefore the purpose of creation. And because he's a person, he can only be an end and not a means. And that's another argument why he has to be the end of everything, including God. He couldn't be a person if he was only a means in front of God. Ridiculous. But that's how the argument is run. The argument about God is to pull God down. The argument from God is to pull God down, and the argument from the person is to build the person up. And so we're pulling God down and pulling man up so that man is now superior to God. Pretty ropey stuff. In fact, damn nonsense. But that's the level at which modern man thinks, and that's the level at which the churchmen were thinking of Vatican II. It's pretty poor stuff. But there it is. Man is the purpose of God. Because God is only the creator of this sublime creature, which is the human person. So man is superior to God. That's the purpose of Vatican II, to lift man above God. What's the material out of which Vatican II is going to work? However, despite that, the new humanism, I'm reading in blue, is sticking to Christ and his church. We're not abandoning God, we're not abandoning Christ, we're not abandoning the church. We are glorifying man even while we're keeping Christ and God and the church. Therefore, what we're going to use as material out of which to make the new church is everything, all the materials of the old church. So the convents, the monasteries, the dioceses, the congregations, the seminaries, all of this material which was the material of the old church is going to be changed, renovated, and made into the material of the new church. So the new church is going to make use of all of the materials of the old church by renovating. Therefore, renovation is a good in itself. Therefore, everything in the old church needs to be renovated. It was old, it was fuddy-duddy, it was losing its vim and vigor, it was dying. The church is losing its grip on modern man, that's true. It's losing its grip on modern man, and we've got to change it so that it regains its grip on modern man. So we're going to jump into the river in order to get closer to the drowning man. The fact that we're going to drown ourselves, that's immaterial. Well, what it's meant is that the church is simply disappearing. The Catholic Church today has been disappearing for the last several years. Many years, for 50 years now. The Vatican II came to an end in 1965. We're now 65 to, what that's, so to 15 would be 50 years, to 20 is 55 years. 55 years the church has been running on the wrong fuel. The church, the godly church, has been trying to run on godless fuel. Like trying to run a motor car with water and petrol. Instead of pure petrol, you're trying to run with water and petrol, because water and petrol will be more economical. Yes, it will be more economical, the only problem is it won't work. So you're going to get close to modern man with a modernized, a jazzed up religion, but it won't work. Just no more than a car will work with water. It doesn't take much water, a couple of snowballs in the petrol tank and the car stops. And you have to clean out the whole mixture of water and petrol and start again with pure petrol. That's exactly what the church has got to do. The church has got to clean out Vatican II and start again with everything that was before Vatican II. So, the material out of which will make the new church is everything of the old church, but everything renewed or renovated. Therefore, in the real church, the measure of what is Catholic is what is traditional. In the new church, the measure of what is Catholic is going to be what is renovated, what breaks with tradition. So, it's not breaking tradition, is no longer seen as a bad thing, it's a good thing. That's exactly what we need to get through to modern man. What we need to glorify man. But we're not breaking with God. We're using the old buildings, we're using the old things. Well, we changed the old buildings, of course. We changed the altar, we stripped the interior of the church and put everything in modern and new, and so that the old mass is completely out of place. We would destroy the very pillars and structure of the whole thing. We would prefer to make a brand new corrugated iron barn, if we could, with girders and everything jazzy and new. Then the new mass will feel at home. But the new mass is not at home in the old churches, and the old mass is not at home in the new churches. The same thing in the secular world. Some of you may visit art galleries, and you will know that, for instance, in most of the big cities, they've now got the main art gallery split in two. There's a modern art gallery, and there's an old art gallery. Here in London, we've got Tate Britain and Tate Modern. And the modern exhibits fit in the modern museum. They don't fit so well in the old museum. And the old exhibits don't fit in the new museum. It's two different worlds, and they can't blend. And they need to be split. And that's why when a renovated priest comes into an old Catholic building, he's going to strip it out. And he's going to strip the altar, he's going to destroy he's going to bulldoze the altar and bring in an ironing table, etc., etc., etc. It's two worlds which can't mix. So that's the material. So it's going to deliberate, the new religion is deliberately going to make and break all the elements of the old religion. Next, the efficient cause. What's the efficient cause? The church is a society. What is the efficient cause of a society? What makes a society? And the answer is, you think about it, the authority. It's the authority that makes a society. It's ultimately the Pope that makes the Catholic Church. He makes cardinals and bishops and priests, or he makes cardinals, cardinals make bishops, bishops make priests, priests make Catholics. But it all comes from the Pope. It's the authority that matters. As Archbishop Lefebvre said, it's the superiors that make the subjects, and not the subjects that make the superiors. Therefore, the idea of the society going into modernist Rome as a subject and changing the modernist superiors in Rome, the Archbishop says is ridiculous. This is the idea of Bishop Philip. Bishop Philip really thinks, and his gang in Leinster, he really thinks that the society just needs to get his foot into the door, and then get itself inside, recognized inside Rome, and the society from below will start changing the cardinals and the popes. Ridiculous. Simply ridiculous. But, of course, these youngsters all knew better than Archbishop Lefebvre. They belong to the new world. They're born and bred in the new world. And the Archbishop was born and bred much more in the old world. So he's out of date. He's dead. He's dead. Why you keep quoting the Archbishop? He's dead. He's past, gone. So the new now society is built by authority, and so the authority to build the new church is going to have to be renewed. In other words, made acceptable to modern man. In other words, it's got to be democratic. We're going to have to make the authority inside the church democratic. It's going to be governed from below and no longer from above. So we're going to renovate the Pope, which means gutting. He's going to be paralyzed, crippled. And so the whole church hierarchy must be democratized from the Pope downwards. So the new church is going to lift the bishops to the level of the Pope. We'll see how that's done. The bishops to the level of the Pope, the priests to the level of the bishops, the laity to the level of the priests by parish councils, and so on and so on. So the whole church, authority at all levels of the church, is going to be democratized. So that's the efficient cause of the new church. A democratic priesthood, democratic bishopric, democratic papacy. Those three are all in the Gospels. The Pope is Peter, the bishops are the apostles, and the priests are the disciples. The names are not yet in the Gospels, but the reality, the hierarchical reality, is in the Gospels already, instituted by Christ. And it's not a fabrication of a later age. They just didn't yet have the names. The names got sorted out quite soon, but they weren't there right at the very beginning. And finally then, what have we got? Putting man, in the formal cause, putting man in this way, in the centre of religion, means, in effect, adoring him. So what we've got here is the religion of man. The religion that puts man in the centre is the religion of man. The religion of God is the religion that puts God in the centre. We move on to the properties, and Calderon chooses three. He might have chosen others. Optimism, inclusivism, and novelty. Optimism. Everything is wonderful in the bright, new, brave, modern world. There was a foolish optimism in the 1960s. Man suffers from original sin. Man is not an angel. Man is not wonderful. He's got some wonderful qualities, which if he makes the right use of them, he rises to sublime heights with the grace of God. That's making the right use of the natural qualities that God gives him at birth. But he's got to make the right use of his qualities to be all that he can be. And most men don't make the right use of their qualities. Most men finish in hell. What? The majority of men lose their souls. It's what the church teaches. It's what our Lord teaches. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be that go in thereat. Narrow is the path that leads to salvation, and few there be that go in thereat. That's our Lord speaking. Our Lord is not a journalist. Our Lord does not lie. The journalists lie, but not our Lord. Our Lord says most men lose their souls. Many are called, he says also, and few are chosen. It's a hard doctrine. But people are nice. God is nice. God won't send anybody to hell. Oh no. No, he won't. It's true. People send themselves to hell. sent themselves there. It's not God that sent them there. It's they themselves that sent them there. So, optimism is foolish in the case of man. Man has got original sin, and most men are victims of their original sin by the time they die. Most men, not all. But it's a relatively small number of souls that are saved. Does that mean I should give up the faith that's not worth the effort? It's infinitely worth the effort, because heaven is infinitely worth anything I can do to get there. You may remember the story of the English martyr. The English martyr was being martyred, and he went up the ladder, got the noose around his neck, and then it kicked away the stool, whatever it was. But the noose slipped. So he fell down on the ground. Get me back up the ladder. All he wanted was to get hanged, this time properly, so he would be properly martyred and go to heaven. That's English history, or English Catholic history. Heaven is unimaginably beautiful, because God is way beyond our imagination, way above us, way above the most that we can imagine. Little Saint Therese of Lisieux, I say little, but she was a great saint, obviously. Little great Saint Therese. At some point when she was dying of tuberculosis in great pain, in great agony, Almighty God showed her a glimpse of heaven. And she said, "My God, you have surpassed even all that I thought." That's a quotation of her when God gave her also a glimpse of heaven before she died. So all she would have wanted was to die at that point. So heaven is infinitely worth it, and it is possible. But most men don't make it. Most human beings don't make it. That's the reality. You can try to dress it how you like, you can try to turn it how you like. St. Thomas Aquinas simply says, most men go to hell because they prefer sense pleasure. And you think about it, sense pleasure is the greatest material happiness that's easily accessible here below, and most men go for it. And the spiritual pleasure of God, the spiritual pleasures of the spiritual life, no, they're not as immediate and they're not as obviously strong as the sense pleasures. Therefore, most men fall into hell. So optimism is stupid. I'm reading blue. Earlier humanisms only resulted in 2 world wars. So again, Calderon is a sweeping view of history. The Renaissance, the Reformation, liberalism, liberal Catholicism, modernism, communism, all that they produced were 2 world wars, because we broke with God. So we must be human, but humanists we mustn't break with God. This time, the humanism is going to be Catholic. It's going to be preserving everything Catholic that gives men so much joy. So we're going to have the glorification of man together with all the joy that used to go along with Catholicism. Well, there's just a little problem. The joy of Catholicism went along with the cross. Take out the cross of Christianity and you take out the joy. Take out the first 3 weeks of the spiritual exercise, you don't arrive at the 4th week. In the cross is the joy. And that's because we've got a bent nature. St. Aloysius Gonzaga said, I'm a bent piece of metal, and I'm entering the religious life in order to be straightened out. So, you put man in the place of God, and then try to preserve everything Catholic. It's ridiculous. But that's the dream of these delinquents of Vatican II. The humanism is going to break, but this time we're going to keep the humanism Catholic because we're going to preserve everything Catholic that gives men so much joy. Well, you're not going to preserve the cross, that's going to go. You're not going to preserve much the Mother of God, she's going to go, and so on and so on. So optimism. We're going to be happy. We're going to have a Catholic Disneyland. And everybody will have a smiley button and smiley uniform and everything. Inclusivism. Calderon points out that the new religion, the old religion was exclusive. It shut people out, it excommunicated people. It said that these people are condemnable, those people are condemnable, those people are condemnable. We are not condemnable, we are the chosen ones, we are okay, everybody else is no good. These excommunications, okay, what a horror. We're going to embrace everybody. All kinds of sinners, they're welcome as sinners into the fold. Just come, everybody. Nobody's excluded. Inclusivism. What do? It again is logical. If man, simply by being man, is so wonderful, then all men are wonderful. If all men are wonderful, then no men are bad. If no men are bad, then no men are going to go to hell. If no men are bad, then no man deserves to be shut out of the church. So the church, to worship man, to glorify man, the church is going to include all men. So you've got, if you put man first, then what immediately follows is unity. The unity of man. Because all men are wonderful, so what you're going to shoot for is to unify all men in the new church. On the other hand, if God comes first, what comes first is not unity but truth. The truths of God, the truths of our human condition, the truths of the basis on which we human beings are created, what we are created for, which is to go to heaven, and the truths which we need to respect and believe in order to go to heaven. And if I believe falsehoods about God, I can't go into his heaven. And there's only one heaven, there's only one God, and there's only one heaven. That's the reality. So here, of course, is the reality. Here is the dream of man's unity. I'm trying to think of the words of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. How many of you know the Ninth Symphony? Dun, 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 bum, 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 bum. That is, the words are Sei umschlungen die Millionen diesen Kuss der ganzen Welt. Be embraced, O ye millions, this kiss of the whole world. It's nutty stuff. It's Masonic. Beethoven was not a Mason, but he had the Masonic mentality and the Masonic dream of unity. And already there's a great deal of God in the music of Beethoven. A great deal. But there's also the modernity as well. The modern is coming in. And so he's dreaming of a kiss to embrace the whole world. Vaudin's absolute violence. And Freud, the ode, the music, the words are of Schiller, an ode of Schiller to joy. Freude, Schöne Götter vom Kontinent, etc. It's the dream of unity, it's the dream of man. So Beethoven is into humanism. There's a good deal of God. He was born and bred Catholic. He was born in the Catholic Rhineland. The Catholicism, the Masonry had not yet wiped out Catholicism or tried to, but it was beginning. So when he came out of Vienna, he ran into a lot of Masonry, and that's what comes through in his music. The Masonry and the God both come through in his music. So you can't say Beethoven is all black, you can't say he's all white. And this, people try to, it's so painful to have to think in grey. Oh, it's so much easier. Everything, this guy is completely okay, this one is completely terrible. And that's simple, clear, That's not the way life works. There's something bad in the greatest of saints, human saints, and there's something good in the worst of human villains. And you need to distinguish between bad and good. Mommy, it hurts. I have to think. Oh, I don't want to think. It hurts. Yes, darling, it does hurt, but you've got to think. If you want to get to heaven, you're going to have to think. So the old truth used to shut men out. I'm reading in blue. Whereas the new unity will bring them all in. So everybody's going to go into the church. And of course that means there's going to be no more excommunications, there's going to be no more definitions of dogma with that you have to believe in on condition of continuing to be a Catholic. There's going to be no more heresy. In effect, there's going to be no more heresy. In effect, there's going to be no more thinking. Because if everything is true as everything else, if contradiction doesn't matter, if I can believe anything and the opposite of anything, then truth doesn't matter. In that case, I don't need to think. In that case, everybody is... all I need is to have Disneyland mush inside my head and then inside my heart. And a smiley button on my lapel and a big stupid grin all over my face in every single photograph. Did the Victorians grin when England meant something, a worldwide empire? Did all those Victorians have a stupid grin over their faces? Then, the old truth shut out, and the new duty will bring us in. Inclusivism is a mark of the new church, and novelty. Modern man is new. Everything in the supermarket is renewed and new every 3 months. A new brand of soap, new brand of pineapple, new, so that the housewives are going to buy it because it's new. And what do the politicians say to modern man? We're going to change things. Note how every politician promises change. Why? Because people are so discontented with what there is. They're not contented with what there is. So invariably they promise change. That's not the ancient wisdom. The ancient wisdom is in Scripture. Don't move the boundary posts from the past, says Scripture. For goodness sakes, listen to your ancestors and pick up their wisdom. Continue their wisdom. Build on their wisdom. Don't think you have to throw everything out of the window every 5 minutes, which is what modern man thinks. But the Catholic judgment swallowed that idea. Everything's got to be changed, everything's got to be new, everything's got to be thrown out the window. Therefore, modern man is new. Everything in the new church must be new. Again, the principle of renovation. We move on to part 2. We go from what Vatican II was to what Vatican II did. We start with the new man. And the key to the new man is liberty. Liberty, equality, fraternity. Cry liberty through the land. England, France, United States, it's always liberty. Liberty is the principle, and then in green, or in muddy green because it's started in black, the application, a triple application. Applying liberty to the mind, applying liberty to the will, and then applying it to the whole of human nature. And so you've got, notice he's got every time, Calderon's got the principle of humanism, and then its application in the council. Humanism concilium, humanism concilium, humanism concilium, this is in red, humanism concilium. Therefore, we start with the humanism in the council with liberty. This is very important and not easy to grasp, because all of us are naturally filled today with the modern idea of liberty, which is the, you might say, the negative idea of liberty instead of the positive idea of liberty. The negative idea of liberty is what you're free from. The positive idea of liberty is what you're free for. And the Catholic idea of liberty is what we are free for. But the modern idea is what we're free from. Free from leads naturally to revolution. Free for naturally builds whatever it's building. It may be good or bad, but whatever it indicates it's building. So humanism. Human dignity goes with freedom, which means, another huge error, I'm reading in blue, the freedom even to be able to choose evil. So, if freedom from is what really matters, then then it's what I'm getting rid of, what chains I'm getting rid of. And just to get rid of any chain is good, and that's all that matters. And the result is many modern youths who are free. They go to university, they're away from their parents. Nobody at the university tries still to tell them what to do. They've got dormitories with the boys and girls right next to one another. Nobody's going to stop them behaving like young boys and girls will do if they're left alone. They've got classes which they more or less have to go to, but they can find a way out of that. And they're like that for 3 years, and that's their ideal. And they come out of those universities with a degree on a round piece of paper with 2 ears. A Mickey Mouse degree. They're Mickey Mouse universities, Mickey Mouse students, Mickey Mouse youth, Disneyland, creators of the Disneyland Society, which is our society. And what of true, good and beautiful have these students, quote-unquote, students absorbed at their quote-unquote universities? But they've been free. They were free from their parents, they were free from their teachers, they were free from any control. They did how they liked. They spent their father's hard-earned money, and Dad thought he was doing his son a favour by preparing him for a high-paid post in some company. The kid comes out useless because he's convinced that the world owes him a living and that he needs to be free. The kid comes out useless. Which is why you've got all of these useless youths today. As for the girls, no, don't talk about them. No girl belongs in any university. It's not for them. It's not what they're meant for. It's not what they're designed for by God. And the fact that they're not doing what they're designed for by God is the suicide of the Western nations. The girls go to school and they dress in the skimpiest of wear and they chase around the courts chasing that stupid ball just like the boys do. The boys are meant to fight. That's their business. Girls are not meant to fight. Girls are meant to be mothers, to have children, to look after their husbands and raise a population and look after a nation, look after their nation. And the white girls are broadly not doing that, or not doing it anything like enough, and not anything like they used to. In Victorian age, there were a lot of children in England. They went all over the world, built the British Empire. What could Britain do today? All it can build is Disneylands. So the freedom even to be able to choose evil. So if freedom from restrictions is the essence of freedom, then if I'm free from a restriction stopping me from doing something evil, freedom to do evil is an important part of freedom. It's almost the measure of freedom. Because it's not what people normally think of as freedom, but freedom is shaking off chains. Somebody's chaining me from doing something something I want to do. If I shake off this chain, I've got true freedom. And that's what makes me dignified. That's what gives me dignity. No. Then, what with unity will go freedom. With truth will go submission. Submission to the truth. Submission to reality. No, I want freedom from reality. I want fantasy. That's the modern world. That's the modern world and modern life. I want freedom even to do evil. And that's real freedom, and that's real dignity. The freedom to do evil, dignity. Or is it the freedom to do good that's dignity? So I've got free will. Okay, I have free will. Yes, sure I have. Have I been given free will to be able to do evil or good? Man, regardless of God, says yes, Man regarding God says no. What matters is submission to the truth in order to go to heaven. I want my freedom to go to heaven. I don't want freedom to go to hell. Freedom to go to hell is a danger as far as I'm concerned. And a real danger. No, I want freedom to go to hell. And if I go to hell, I'm going to be free. No, you're not. You're going to be chained in hell. Chained like never. And for eternity. I don't care. I want to be free to defy God. Well, you will be free. You will defy God for eternity in the depths of hell. So this idea of human dignity goes with freedom. No. What does human dignity go with? Human dignity goes with reason. It might be better to, rather than submission, well, it doesn't matter. But in the one case, it's going to be reason. And in the other case, it's going to be fantasy. Because fantasy enables me to put myself above God. Reason immediately puts me a long way beneath God, in accordance with reality. So this is reason and reality, this is fantasy and unreality. And there's two completely different ways of life. And Vatican II is the modern, man-centered, foolish, freedom way of life. Which is very foolish. And then Calderon says, GS is Gaudium et Spes, one of the worst documents of Vatican II, one of the last documents and one of the worst. 13, 14, paragraph 17 and 34, you've got this version of freedom. The ideal of freedom of Vatican II is quite clearly the modern idea, the foolish idea. Fantasy above reality. The subject above the object. Man above God. Unity above truth. And so on. For indeed, freedom to foul things up is a lack of true freedom, which is to achieve things good. Imagine yourself going into a garage to buy a new car. And the car dealer says to you, over here I have a car which is free to crash. It's a good car, it's got a good engine and everything, but it's no different from any other car. It's capable of crashing. Here I've got a car which is exactly the same as a car, only it's been touched with a magic wand by a fairy godmother, and it cannot crash. It's not free to crash. So, on my right, I'm offering you a car that's not free, but it can't crash. On my left, I'm offering you a car that's free, but it can crash. Which do you want to buy? Well, which would you buy? If you were promised that the car won't crash, you're pretty sure you can buy the car that won't crash. To hell with freedom, it won't crash. So, this car is going to be free to drive and drive and drive without ever crashing. This car is always going to be free to drive, but it's also going to be free to crash. The moment it crashes, it drives no more. That puts, so, freedom for good or for ill is not necessarily a good thing. Freedom, being deprived of freedom to do ill, is perhaps not a bad thing. You've got there two different ideas of freedom. Leo XIII says freedom is, the true freedom is the freedom to choose between good things and good things. The freedom to choose between good things and wrong things is not true freedom. Okay. It's a key distinction, but not a distinction easy to get, because we are so used to thinking of freedom as freedom from any constraint, any limitation, any kind of change, that, to think that maybe some chains are useful, it's difficult to think. We've been indoctrinated in the false freedom. I've got a chasm, and it's a narrow plank bridge going across the chasm. And there are either guardrails on each side or there aren't. You've got a choice between a plank bridge going over without guardrails and a plank bridge going over with guardrails. If you're young and you want to show off to your girlfriend, you'll choose the one without guardrails, because you're motivated to choose without guardrails. But if you've got any sort of normal sense, you want to survive, you choose the guardrails. And the guardrails will stop you from falling into the chasm. They're taking away your freedom to fall into the chasm. Well, yes, please take it away. Yes, please take it away. I don't want to fall into the chasm. Well, then you want less freedom. Yes, I want less freedom. Take the Boeing 747, or these huge jets crossing the Atlantic. Undoubtedly, before they take off, the pilot goes through a long checklist, or with his ears to the pilot. They go through a long checklist. They move the chart there. They move the fin. They move the ailerons. They make sure that all the systems are ready to go, that all the systems are working. It's enough. It'll be enough for one system not to work for the plane to crash. So they check every darn system. They make sure that the plane is obeying the rules of the plane, and that it's not got freedom from the rules. Otherwise, if it's got freedom from the rules, it's going to crash. So, you can do 1,000 examples of always the same thing. Freedom depends upon what it's for and what it's from. Okay, now, apply that to the mind. And here you've got the line, exceptionally in red. Kant was mad to free the mind from its object. This is schema. This is the key to Pius X. This is the key to modernism. Because modernism was a grave threat to the church around 1900. Pius X was a peasant. He came from a peasant family. He had his feet on the ground and he had some common sense. So he did not go in for fantasy. He was not interested in fantasy. He was interested in the truth and the true faith. So, on the contrary, Kant, time of Beethoven, same time of the French Revolution. Kant is the French Revolution in philosophy. Kant liberated the mind from the object. It's the ultimate liberty. Kant said, you think this is a crayon. It looks like a crayon. It sounds like a crayon. It feels like a crayon. It tastes like a crayon. All the appearances are that it's a crayon. But how do you know that it is a crayon? I don't know. I know the appearances. My senses pick up the appearances. But what it actually is, I'm not sure. He pretended that the mind could not know behind the sense appearances. He pretended that the mind could not know its object. He liberated the mind from the object. Kant said, if this crayon imposes upon me that it's a crayon, it's taking away my freedom. I want freedom to be able to say, it's a tortoise, or a monkey, or a pizza, or my girlfriend. I'm free then to say what it is. I say what it is. My dear friend, the lunatic asylum is just down the corner of the road. Would you like to be inscribed? The philosophy is lunatic, absolutely lunatic. But who is the philosopher who reigns as king in the philosophy departments of all modern universities? Answer, Kant. That's how stupid modern man is. Unbelievably stupid. Of course, if Kant needs to put something stupid, to write up some stupid thing on the flipboard, what's he going to use to do it? He's going to use the appearance of a crayon. And what does Kant do when he gets up in the morning? Well, he puts on the appearance of his trousers, he puts on the appearance of his shirt, he goes down to the appearance of breakfast, and he says, I say that is coffee. I say that it's coffee. It's not coffee telling me. I'm free. So it's me telling the coffee that it's coffee. And he tells the coffee that it's coffee, because otherwise he'll get thirsty. He then climbs into the appearance of his car, he cranks the appearance of the ignition, he gets to the appearance of the university, everything by the appearances. He lives by respecting that he knows things, by respecting his common sense. Otherwise he couldn't live. He gets his living by teaching nonsense on the chair of the university, on the stools, on the bank, wherever the professor sits, on the professor's chairs at the university. He talks this nonsense because the parents of all of the students are so stupid that they want him to teach the nonsense that fits the crazy modern world. They don't want him to teach the truth that will take them to heaven. And the parents pay untold sums of money to put their children through these mincemeat universities, where the universities will make mincemeat of their common sense and of their faith, and it will make mincemeat of the girls' common sense, faith, and honour, if it can. And often, of course, it can. All the circumstances are set up for the parent to do so. And the parents shell out because the parents are stupid. Why are they stupid? Because they've not got the light of the faith to fortify and strengthen their and raise their common sense. And so common sense gets pushed under, because common sense is part of reality. Modern man does not want reality, and therefore he's going to suppress reality. He's going to pretend that boys are girls and girls are boys. The women are going to be turned into bitches or dykes, and the boys are going to be turned into dishrags. Because the Kant is going to dissolve the brain when somebody believes my dad is paying me to go to this university and to go to these philosophy courses. My dad is paying good money. I respect my dad. He's paying good money for me to absorb this nonsense. But if I absorb it, my brain turns into mush. Kant was mad to free the mind from its object, but that is what Vatican II does. Dei Verbum, the document Dei Verbum. There's no objective dogma can tell the mystery. The mystery can only be known by subjective experience. The incarnation. I feel it. I experience it. Well, it's stated. God of God, man of man, he came down to earth for our salvation, for us men, for our salvation. No. That's objective statements. Kant says no objective statements. Just my feel. I feel the truths of the Catholic faith. Oh, you do? Good luck. Good luck. Because a nasty day will come when you no longer feel them. What are you going to do about your Catholic faith when you no longer feel it? Oh, if I no longer feel it, I will adopt whatever after I feel. But I've got to feel. Feelings. Modern man is stupid. French will say stupid as his faith. That can say so, no objective dogma, because Kant has ruled out objective dogma. The mind can't grasp anything objective. Can tell the mystery. The mystery is so much more than the incarnation. It's so much more. God of God, light of light, true of God. That's nothing. That's just words. It's got to be feeling. And if I don't feel it, then it's nothing. So, of course, in that case, dogma can change and shift. Dogma shifts with my feelings. I eat too much green cheese, and tomorrow I don't feel like believing in the incarnation at all. And then I get drunk the following night, and that's the end of the whole creed. Etc., etc., etc. This is known by the subjective experience. So that's the council putting Kant into action. So that's the liberation of the mind, which is the unchaining of the man, the undoing of the man. And since men run on reason, whereas women run on emotion, that's what they're made to do by Almighty God. They complete their man, they complement their man. He runs on reason, she runs on emotion. I always say, darling, you told me that 2 months ago. How did you know? I don't know how I knew, but I did know. You did, yes you did. How do you know? She has intuition. She has emotion, which complement his reason. But his reason must rule. And so the man must be the head, she is the heart. That's old-fashioned, but it's true. She has qualities of heart that he doesn't have. He has qualities of head that she doesn't have. It's not that she's got no head. It's not that she can't study. It's not that she's stupid, necessarily. But she's not, per se, a creature of reason. She's a creature of emotion. Which is why all kinds of things. Then the will. If true and false are melted, if true and false melt, then right and wrong melt. Because it is wrong to steal. That's a statement. That's an objective statement. It's wrong to steal. But that's an objective statement which therefore is invalid. If I feel that it's wrong to steal, then it's wrong to steal. But if I don't feel it, then I can steal whatever I like. So morality, if truth goes, morality goes. Therefore, the true and false melt, these objective right and wrong, and henceforth right and wrong will be measured by subjective conscience. Conscience will no longer be the inbuilt subject's voice of God, speaking the objective truths of God. Conscience, like Henry VIII said, my conscience and I are on good terms. In other words, conscience told Henry VIII what he wanted to be told. He had his conscience on the leash, and he was telling his conscience what to say. So conscience is going to go, and the will is going to be liberated. And finally, nature. So, what does grace do for nature? Answer. This is a piece of trickery. Grace perfects nature. Excuse me. That's perfectly true, but it's not given by the modern, it's not given by Vatican II, it's true meaning. Grace perfects nature, and therefore is a servant of nature, and therefore it's underneath nature. It's not, grace is not supernatural, it's now subnatural. Again, if God is brought underneath man, then grace comes underneath nature. Man has nature, God has grace. Therefore, as God is brought down, so grace is going to be brought under nature. Grace is less than nature. Nature is greater than grace. And so grace, from being the supernatural raiser and healer of nature, is going to be made the servant of nature. And therefore man again is going to be above God. It ties, it hangs together. So, grace perfects nature, and so it is a subnatural servant of nature, that again is a guardian of spirits. And therefore Christ reveals not God to man, he reveals man to man. God reveals man to man. Christ shows man, not God, but Christ showed man to man. Christ showed to man what man can be and what man should be. But he didn't, again, Christ was serving man more than God. Conclusion. In brief, so Paul VI can say, all of you humanists, you glorify man and you liberate man. Paul VI says, Vatican II does also. Vatican II liberates man, liberates his mind, liberates his will, liberates his nature. Grace liberates nature by freeing nature from sin. That's true. Therefore, grace is the liberator of nature and the servant of nature. So grace is brought down underneath man. Vatican II glorifies man and liberates him. Only Vatican II decks out freedom in all the trappings of the church. Vatican II adds a divine dimension to your humanism. With your humanism, you are always all man, man, man. But we have man glorified by God, For instance, let me see if I can find it. Examples of this. Where is this? This is the end of part 2. One moment. Liberty is dignity, yes, but how much more beautiful is dignity as showing that man is in God's image? We tack on God to humanism. God is classed and stuck on as well. God is a bonus. Our humanism has got God as a bonus. Subjectivism liberates the mind, yes, but how much more experience of the truth is in the mystery of God? We have so much more feelings than you do. Divine feelings. You don't have divine feelings, all you have is man. We have man with God tacked on, with God glorifying man. Conscience above all, yes, but the heart naturally, we have the heart naturally partaking of eternal law, which is God's law. And so men naturally fulfill the will of God. Men naturally fulfill the will of God. What dream is that? And so God's will is bound to fall in line with our own will. Wow, that's a discovery. God is bound to agree with me with everything I want to do. Wow. Great. So you see, you just got liberty, but we got God approving of our use of liberty, the use we want to make of liberty. Grace refers to God, yes, but it makes us partake of God by perfecting our natural liberty, by freeing us from enslaving sin. You humanists don't have anything to do. We have liberating grace. So you see, the argument is, you poor liberals, you and the humanists, your humanism is nothing like ours. Only, of course, in ours, God is obedient to man. Let's break there for a break, because we have, for anybody who wants still to stay, there's another part 2, part 3 and part 4, but in the meantime, let's break here. Part 3 is not easiest about the church. So there's real trickery, but it's very interesting trickery. Very interesting. So 3, the new church. So we revolutionized man, above all liberating freedom from any restraints upon what he wants, what he dreams, what he thinks, and freedom from reality. Freedom for fantasy. So, we move on to the new church, and you're accustomed to going through the green, and then through the red, and then into the blue. New church distinction. Oh boy. This is a capital distinction which is essentially false, but it's the highway to the new doctrine on the church. It results in section B green, new relations between the new church and the world. The relations with the world are going to be revolutionized. In brief, the church is no longer going to assert itself, again logically, the church is no longer going to assert itself as superior to mankind and needing to dominate mankind. The church is going to be very nice and humble and sweet and say, whatever you like, mankind, you're okay. And so the church is just going to be there to incense everything that man wants to get up to. That's the new relationship. So the church, instead of the church dominating the world is going to now dominate the church, in brief. The new church and other religions, it follows, as night follows the day, that if man is wonderful, then all his religions are wonderful. Because all of the religions come from men. I mean, the Indian religion gives a very prominent part to an elephant, but that's another story. Nevertheless, the religions come from men. So if men are wonderful, then all these religions are wonderful. So you're straight into ecumenism. So ecumenism follows absolutely from the crazy system. And what this means, so the new church and other religions is ecumenism. which is two documents of Vatican II, Unitatis Redintegratio, that's the Catholic Church with the Christian religions, and then Nostra Aetate, the Catholic Church with the non-Christian religions. They're all going to be included, they're all wonderful, they've all got something running for them. Nobody's going to be excluded, you remember the principles. And then Lumen Gentium is going to say, but still the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church, it isn't better than the other religions, but it is a bit better. The other religions are just as good as Catholicism, but they're not quite as good as Catholicism. Work that one out if you can. They've driven themselves up a creek without a paddle in this. They're contradicting themselves all the time. So there's the new church and other religions, and finally the new church redefined. So we've got such a different view, such a different concept of the church that it's going to need a new definition and a new words for it. So we're going to have the people of God, we're going to have collegiality, and we're going to have communion. Ingenious, fascinating, but absolutely villainous. So we start with the new church distinction. The problem. Jesus wanted his church to be both visible and universal. Go and teach all nations. Notice what our Lord said. That's the famous words at the end of the Gospel of Matthew. Going, said to his apostles, going, teach all nations. That's the charter for the mission, church's missions. Teach, not dialogue, teach. You've got the truth. I've given you the truth, not unity. I've given you the truth. And he says, and again in the Gospel of Mark, those who believe and are baptized will be saved. Those who refuse to believe will be condemned. Our Lord speaking. So our Lord is splitting humanity. And there's a famous occasion in the Gospel of St. John when our Lord preaches and the crowd is split. Some of them think he's the Messiah, some of them don't. And there's a great argument arises. Who's responsible for that split? Is our Lord who's responsible? No. Our Lord is telling the truth. The truth should unite men, but it doesn't. The truth splits men, but that's not the truth's fault. It's the fault of men if they split being told the truth. Some accepting, some refusing. So, Jesus wanted his church to be both visible and universal. How is it to be cut down to size for modern man? This all true, all demanding, all superior church, it's too much for modern man. Now, our principle is we are getting through to modern man. We're not going to get through to modern man with this dominating, divine, coming from God idea of the church. We've got to bring it down to the level of man so that modern man can accept it. Now, what's the solution to the problem? The solution is to separate the visibility of the church from the universality. So the universal church is no longer going to be visible. It's going to be invisible in men's hearts. All men are Christians whether they know it or not, because everybody really loves God. I hate him. I don't believe in him. I hate him. Oh, you really believe in him, don't you? I don't. Oh, you really do. Yeah. That's the new religion. It's vomitable, absolutely vomitable, and it's not masculine. It's nothing masculine, which is why, love, love, love. It's all the new church is so effeminate because it's precisely not making any demands. It's not setting up any martyrs. It's just kneeling down in front of modern man and telling him he's wonderful and he can do what he likes. So we're going to separate, so everybody is going to be supposed to be really Christian in Catholic in their hearts. Anonymous Christians, Calderon. Everyone is a Christian without knowing it. It's absolute nonsense. The real God gives to real human beings real free will. And many human beings use their free will to spit in the face of God. I hate him, I don't love him, I don't submit to him, I spit on him, Okay. Okay, says Almighty God. I died on the cross to save you. You don't want to be saved? Okay. You choose hell. I'm not choosing you, you're choosing it. That's the real God. And then the visible church will not be universal. So the universal church will not be visible, and the visible church will not be universal. It's a clever trick, but it's a sheer trick. So that the visible church will not be universal. The Catholic Church, the visible Catholic Church, is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. And it's still shrinking today, obviously. So the Vatican, the new church, is quite happy to shrink and shrink and shrink. It's in its contract. Because we don't want to impose upon modern man. We want modern man to feel free to do what he likes. So the visible church, which is quote-unquote Catholic, will no longer be universal. The universal church will be the invisible kingdom of heaven within men's hearts. So the church's visibility is separated from its universality. The visible church shrinks and shrinks. The universal church is invisible in men's hearts, so you can't argue about it. Our Lord says the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so the invisible church is going to be called the kingdom of heaven. And the visible Catholic Church will keep the name of Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church and the kingdom of heaven are going to be split. It's a Protestant split originally, but it's picked up by the geniuses of Vatican II in order to revolutionize, to turn upside down and inside out the true idea of the church. And the now unchurched world will be the new Christendom. Since the Catholic Church is no longer universal, it's no longer making its claim on the whole of mankind like our Lord did, then it's unchurched, so to speak. But it will be the new Christendom. So we've got a French philosopher, a French Catholic philosopher called Jacques Maritain, who came up with this brilliant idea that mankind, unchurched, separated, left alone from the church, abandoned, so to speak, abandoned by the church, no longer dominated or claimed on or grabbed by the church, but left to itself. That unchurched world is so wonderful that it's as good as Christendom. It's the new Christendom. So the old Christendom was all of those who belonged to the Catholic Church in reality, that's the Catholic Church, plus the rest of humankind was potentially Christian. All souls are potentially Christian until the moment they die. They're all able to be converted, able to believe, able to enter into the Catholic Church until they die. That's the Catholic Church. So the Catholic doctrine, the true Catholic doctrine, is that the Catholics are, all men are Catholics either actually or potentially. Actually, if they positively belong to the Church by their faith and by the practice of their faith, potentially, if they even never had anything to do with the Church, but they still can always be converted if they met a missionary, if they, etc., etc., etc. So, potentially naturally. The new doctrine is that the actual Catholics are shrinking, while the potential Catholics are so good, because man is good, remember? Man is spirit of God. They're so good that they're Christendom in a new way. It's a new Christendom. And Maritain dared to say that the United States are an example of the new Christendom. Because everybody is so nice and wonderful. Disneyland again. The dream. The dream substituting for reality. In reality, the error, third red subsection, in reality, the Catholic Church and the Kingdom of Heaven are identical. You may remember particularly when our Lord gives the keys to Peter, or says he's going to give the keys to Peter. You're going to have the key. Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. That's the Catholic Church. And you will have the keys of the kingdom. It's the same thing. So kingdom and church are simply two different expressions for the same reality. But the two different expressions are now split so that we think about the kingdom of heaven in one way, universal but invisible. We think about the Catholic Church in another way, visible but not universal. Only these two will coincide at the end of the world, when the kingdom of heaven will be not only universal but also visible, and the church will be not only visible but also universal. So the dream is that at the end of the world, every human being is going to belong to the kingdom of heaven church. It's nonsense. At the end of the world is going to be the Antichrist and a mass of human beings who are going to have nothing to do with the church, and will want nothing to do with the church, under the terrible persecution of the Antichrist. Okay, what happens now then to relations between the church and the world? Go and teach all nations put the church in the driving seat. And for hundreds of years, all the way until, let's say, at least the French Revolution, the church was in the driving seat. All the way until Vatican II, the church was in the driving seat. Pius XI, Pius X, Pius XI, Pius XII did not abandon the idea of going to teach all nations. So they still had the idea of the old church. But ever since Vatican II, that idea has been abandoned. So Calderon goes back into history. Before Vatican II, subsections of grade. Before Vatican II, at Vatican II, and conclusion. Before Vatican II. Until 1302, that's the end of the Middle Ages, more or less. Well, not quite the end, but towards the end. The church was queen over all Christendom in the true sense. Christendom meaning the world practicing the Catholic faith and belonging to the Catholic Church. The church was queen over all Christendom. But in the 14th century began the series of humanisms, or a series of humanisms. So Calderon, we're back to this analysis of the decline of the world from the end of the Middle Ages onwards, right through to the modern age, with one series of fake Catholicism, with one example of fake Catholicism after another, in the name of glorifying man, and stopping from glorifying God so much, until we come to the fakest of fakes, which is Vatican II, where the humanism is still just as humanistic as ever, only it's disguised as Catholicism and it's palming itself off as Catholic. So in the 14th century began a series of humanism affirming man and making one compromise with the world after another, which peaked in the doctrine of this French philosopher Maritain in his notorious book, Integral Humanism in 1936. He wrote a book called Integral Humanism, which includes this idea of the new Christendom. Maritain was really the guru of Vatican II. Maritain was the Denkmeister, the master thinker of Vatican II, and he possessed the mind of Pope Paul VI. Paul VI translated into Italian, before he was Pope, translated into Italian the book Integral Humanism, which presents this complete new vision of the church, new vision of the world, new vision of relations between them, and so on. So, one compromise with the world after another. An example of that compromise was the Church of Napoleon in 1801, the Concordat. A Concordat is an agreement by which the Church accepts to renounce certain privileges or rights that it has, but it gives them up in order to obtain from the state a permission or a right or the ability to operate, which it won't have without the Concordat. The Church keeps its rights, but it renounces using them in this case. The state maintains its persecution of the Church, not by forbidding the Church completely from operating, that it can't do. The people, there's still too much Catholicism in the people, but the state nevertheless limits and contracts as far as it can the freedom of the state. So it's a deal cut with the bad world. It's a deal which the Church cuts with the world, not by renouncing its, not by not by saying it doesn't have these rights, but by giving up the use of the rights. So the principles are still intact, but the practice is to give up, to back off to some extent. But to some extent, in order, in the case of the Concordat, for instance, to allow the French church, or the church in France, freedom of action once more to save souls. But when Napoleon negotiated it with the church, he cheated at every possibility. So, for instance, the Cardinal Consalvi was the Catholic representative. When the deal was completely made, I think Napoleon stuck on articles, extra articles, which had not been negotiated or dealt with. He just stuck on extra articles. Because he had the armies, he had the soldiers, he had the force. So the church went along with it, but the church was able from then on, once more, to operate in public, which it had been not able to do since the Revolution. The Revolution, the priests and the nuns will get slaughtered. And there was not much the church, there was nothing Rome could do about it, because Napoleon was, the force was with the guns, were with the revolutionary soldiers, and then with Napoleon. So the church it makes deals in order to be able to operate. So one compromise after another, peaking in Maritain, whose solution was the church backs off and leaves the world to be a wonderful new Christendom. It's still just as Christian as ever, so of course it isn't as Christian as ever, but he pretends it is. So it's the final compromise, you might say. And therefore, since Maritain was the think master of the guru of Paul VI, Vatican II gives up on politics. It lets the world go secular, calling it Christian, but merely sprinkling it with holy water if the modern world wants. Of course, would you like some holy water? Would you like a bit of holy water? No, thanks. Oh, all right. Disappears. Oh, well, yes, please, you can't do any harm. That's the new attitude of the new church towards the new Christendom. So the new Christendom is wonderful without the church. The new church is wonderful because it's backing off. You can see it's a total reduction of the church to nothingness. No wonder, and it loses all respect. A church that challenges the world and whose martyrs will go to the death rather than give up anything on doctrine. That's a church that the world has to respect. The modern church, the new church, the soft church. The politicians are only respected insofar as they've still got Catholics who could vote. Catholics who go along with the new church, then the state has to go along to some extent with the new church, but they despise it. Merely sprinkling the world with holy water if it wants. And so the temporal order becomes valuable for itself and no longer for heaven. Gaudium et Spes. That means that the temporal order, the world, as opposed to the spiritual order, the temporal order, the order in time, the order of the world in time, tempus temporis, worldly things become valuable in themselves. You may remember, especially if you've done the spiritual exercises, St. Ignatius argues totally logically. He says that all creatures are created by God for man to enable him to get to heaven. To enable him to get to heaven. The creatures are not good in themselves. The creatures, wine, motor cars, buildings, you name it. The creatures are good for the purpose of helping man to get to heaven. And therefore, St. Ignatius, if a creature like a computer no longer helps me to get to heaven, on the contrary, if it's helping me to go to hell, then I've got to get rid of it. Everything is to be measured by heaven and hell in Ignatius, who's Catholic. But not for Vatican II, it's no longer man who is the measure. It's no longer God who is the measure, with his heaven and his hell. It's man who is the measure. So if man likes something and wants something, that's fine. It's good in itself. That's the doctrine of Vatican II. And then another conclusion is the international order. International peace will require a secular authority, and that means ultimately the Antichrist. The United Nations and the Antichrist. because, and the Count also was already arguing, there's got to be an international authority. It used to be the Catholic Church. I don't know if you remember in 1982, the Falklands War. The Falklands War was stirred up by Freemasonry to pull down the right-wing government of Argentina, which was restoring order in Argentina, a right-wing order. The devils and the Freemasons and the Jews and the left-wingers can't stand that, so they cooked up a war between, a threat of war between Chile and Argentina. These are two Catholic countries, even in still in the 1982. They appealed first to England to arbitrate, to Great Britain. Great Britain arbitrated, but one of the sides didn't like it. So the two of them then agreed to appeal to the Pope to arbitrate. Still in 1982, they appealed to the Pope. The Pope arbitrated, and they accepted it. Maybe simply because it was Catholic. Britain might have had a special interest on one side or the other and not have delivered a just judgment. In any case, I don't know the details. It was an argument over a silly little island at the very bottom of South America. In the Magellan Straits, there's a lot of islands in there, and one particular island was disputed between Chile and Argentina, who've got a frontier down there. So they were ready to go to war, two countries ready to go to war for a silly little island. So the Pope arbitrated, and they agreed, and that was the end. No problem, and the Julio-Masonry would not be able to bring down the Argentinian government. So what did they do? They then cooked up a war between England and the Argentina over the Falkland Islands. They persuaded the Argentinians who think that the Falkland Islands belong to Argentina, which they did until the British seized them, I think at the time of the Napoleonic Wars, because they're strategically situated right next to Cape of Good Horn, and ships having come around the Cape of Good Horn are going to pass close by the Falkland Islands. The Falkland Islands is a very good base to exercise some control on the shipping around the Cape of Good Horn. Cape of, what am I saying? Cape Horn, sorry, the Cape of Good Hope is the bottom of Africa. So they then cooked up a war between Britain and the Falkland Islands, Britain and Argentina. So Mrs. Thatcher got together a small navy and shipped it down to recapture the Falkland Islands. The United States helped, Julio-Masonry behind both, and the Falkland Islands were recaptured. The right-wing generals in Argentina were discredited, and the right-wing government fell. And so the left-wingers came back in Argentina, which is what Julio-Masonry wanted, and what the Masonry of England and America wanted. It's Julio-Masonry that runs the world today. Those Jews who work with the Masons, and those Masons who work with the Jews in order to control the world. And the Masons think that at the end they're going to come out on top. Little do they know. They're riding a tiger, and we know who is going to come out on top, if God allows, which he will do if we need to be punished. Which by the time of the Antichrist we will need. And so international peace requires an authority. That authority used to be the Pope for many hundreds of years in the Middle Ages. And wars were never too big, never too serious, because all men were Catholics. And so they only disputed about minor things. But when Luther cranked up a huge religious difference, there were wars all over Europe. Wars in France, the Guerre de la Fronde, wars in England, the Civil War of the 1640s, wars in Germany, the terrible 30 Years' War, 1618, 1638, because of the religious difference. That made, so to speak, a real war. So another conclusion, and Paul VI then goes to the United Nations, and he has the nerve, from a Catholic point of view, he has the nerve to tell the United Nations, you are the hope of mankind. He's resigned, he's given up the real religion, he's given up the real church. The real church is the hope of mankind. Our Lord is the Prince of Peace. You want peace, make everyone a Catholic, and then there's going to be peace. Or argue only about little things, because the big things you'll be agreed on. You don't make the world Catholic, then they're going to be religious wars and pandemonium, all kinds of trouble. So that's another conclusion. So that's why the new church glorifies the United Nations. because it's given up its authority to its international authority to the United Nations. Okay, we move on to C, New Church and the other religions. We've got a first shrinking, so to speak. Here was the church, and with this liberal shrinking, we've cut out the world. So the world is no longer a matter for the church to concern itself about. So that's one great act of submission to modern man. And now the second shrinking is to cut out another whole quarter, so to speak. And that's the other religions. So there's a worldly shrinking and then there's a religious shrinking. Other religions. And you can see the Catholic Church is being just cut down to size. And here's the poor little Catholic Church. Catholic in inverted commas, because it's nothing like the real Catholic Church. The real Catholic Church claims to dominate the whole world, and if it has enough priests and bishops and popes with the faith, they'll do it. They would conquer the world, like in the Middle Ages, but not now. Now they're so used, they've lost the faith. They've virtually lost the faith. So this is the second shrinking. So the first shrinking, which we saw in A and B, let go of the secular world, and when the church shrank from 1 to a half. The second will upgrade all the non-Catholic religions in section C, and the half will be reduced to a quarter. We're no longer, the Catholic Church is no longer to say all the other religions are false. The Catholic Church is going to say, Vatican II is going to say, all the other religions, they've all got their points. And we no longer claim to be better than any other religion. Well, maybe a bit. What? You're claiming to be better than us? We Protestants, we Orthodox, we atheists, we Jews, we Freemasons, aren't we just as good as you? Well, yes, you are. Only give us still a bit of superiority. Otherwise we'll go into the corner and we'll just cry. That's the virility of the new church, or the lack of virility of the new church. You dare say that you're better? Yes! I will match you. Go ahead. That's how it used to be. I will touch you, waterboard you. Be my guest. That's Catholic. As long as you're dying for the truth. You're not dying for any nonsense. You're dying for the truth. That's Catholic. So, the first shrinking says, so then at Vatican II, you've got 3 documents. Unitatis Redintegratio, UR, Nostra Aetate, NAE, and Lumen Gentium, so UR. And therefore, the Church is going to say all the nice, the Catholics, the Vatican II, is going to say all the nice things that you can think of about all of these false religions. Oh, you Hindus, oh, you got a lovely elephant that you adore all over the place. Oh, it's wonderful. The elephant is a creature of God, and you're loving and adoring creatures of God. Oh, it's wonderful. I could be a Hindu. And so you get the Pope lets himself get branded on the forehead with the mark of a Hindu. And so on and so on and so on. You Islams, oh, you're famous beheaders. Gosh, that's a wonderful way of executing criminals. We don't have it, but you have it. Oh, wow. So Christian non-Catholic religions have got church elements, like the Protestants have scripture, the Orthodox have still a valid Eucharist. So these are church elements which are obviously taken over, inherited from the Catholic Church. So with these church elements, they're Christian churches, so they're okay, because they've got church elements. The elements, they used to be called vestiges, they're just relics that are left behind and serve untruth. But no, now they're no longer vestiges, now they're elements. They've got elements of Christianity, so they're okay. Nostra Aetate. The non-Christian religions have neither scripture nor a Eucharist, but they have seeds of the word. For instance, well, I'm sure that in the Jewish religion they still say that 2 and 2 are 4. That's a seed of the word. Well, you still have some, the Jewish religion, Islam, you still do believe in God. Oh, you believe in the God of Abraham, there it is. Everybody, the Jews, Arabs, Muslims, and Catholics all believe in the God of Abraham. So that since you believe in the God of Abraham, then you're okay. Oh, God, Abraham is certainly a noble ancestor of the Christian faith. Certainly. He's an ancestor of Catholicism, no doubt. He's a Catholic hero, in fact. But he's nothing like enough. Knew nothing of the New Testament, etc., etc. But still, they've got Abraham, so that's okay. And the Muslims have Abraham. So you can see what the Catholics are doing. They're scratching around for any good element, anything still good in these false religions, in order to say the religions are no longer just false, the religions are okay. Lumen Gentium. However, the Church of Christ subsists best in the Catholic Church. So we, the little Catholic Church, we're the best of all the churches. In that case, you're saying that you're better than us. Oh, no, etc., etc. You see the comedy. You see the comedy performance of the contradictions and the untruth. Conclusion. Therefore, all men will belong to the kingdom of heaven, and they will be saved, while the Catholic Church will labour to build up the kingdom of heaven. So the invisible kingdom of heaven is all there in everybody's breast. The Catholic Church is working to build up the external kingdom of heaven. And then finally the two will unite, and that's when everybody will be Catholic, and it's the end of the world, and we all float on Disneyland into heaven. That's the LG is Lumen Gentium. So you can see the relationship between the new church and other religions. It's pathetic. It's frankly pathetic. It's worse than pathetic, it's false. It's absolutely false. And it's, at one point our Lord says to the Pharisees, if I was to say that I'm not God, I would be a liar like all of you. That's our Lord talking. That's Catholic. If I was to say that I'm not God, which I might be tempted to say because I'm getting into so much trouble because I'm saying I am God, but if I did say that I wasn't God, I would be a liar just like the rest of you lot. That's in the Gospel of St. John. You can find it if you like. Chapter 7 or chapter 8. I think it's chapter, I'm not sure which chapter. It's one of those chapters in John. So, we move on to D. Since the new church is so very different from the true church, then we've got to redefine it. We're going to redefine it as people of God. Now watch out, here's another real piece of trickery. Democratic equality requires that Catholic laity equal Catholic priests. That's the new priesthood, including both the ordained priests and the Catholic laity. While non-Catholics have got to equal Catholics, the new people of God, so that all men now belong to God's people. Oh boy. Look at that one. Now we've got 1, 2, 3. This is the Catholic idea. There are priests ordained, there are then the Catholic laity, and then there are non-Catholics. And that includes all human beings. And the priests are set apart from and superior to the laity. Ooh. But that goes against equality. Modern world believes in liberty and equality and fraternity. So that grace, to say the priests are superior to say they're different from the laity, that's all right. But to say they're superior to the laity, ouch. And then these are all Catholics, and they're superior to non-Catholics. Ouch. So the new church is going to change that. The new church is going to run together these two in a priesthood, in the new priesthood, and is going to pretend that there's no real important difference between Catholic priests and Catholic laity, and therefore it's a new priesthood. For instance, Scripture speaks in two places of the Catholic people being priests. And there is, you can use the priest in that, but it's in a different sense. It's the priesthood of baptism and the priesthood of holy orders. The two are quite different. But they're run together, they're blurred, in order to stop the priest from being superior to the Catholic laity. And this new priesthood now is going to minister to all Catholics, priests or laity, are going to minister to the new people of God. So the non-Catholics are the new people. And therefore, we've got everybody belonging to the people, the new people of God. No longer are we excluding non-Catholics and considering that they're inferior to Catholics. We are considering that everybody belongs on an equal footing, priests and people, but both belonging to the new people of God. So, and non-Catholics equal Catholics, so that all men now belong to God's people. That's Lumen Gentium. Similarly, we move on to collegiality. Bishops are going to be lifted to being co-governors of the church with the Pope, by receiving their power to rule and to teach, not from the Pope, but from their sacramental consecration as bishops. That's also Lumen Gentium. That's a little bit complicated. What makes the bishop has a triple power: to teach, to sanctify, and to govern. The true teaching of the church is that he receives his first and third power to teach and to govern, his jurisdiction to teach and to govern. He receives from the Pope. It's the Pope that appoints the bishop to a diocese, and by that appointment, that bishop is entitled to teach. He has the authority to teach and to govern in that diocese. His power to sanctify comes from his consecration. When he was consecrated, that's when he became a bishop. Like when he was ordained, he became a priest. When he's consecrated, he becomes a bishop. And when he's consecrated, he then receives the sacramental powers of a bishop to confirm and to ordain. So the true teaching of the church is that the bishop receives his power to sanctify, to give the sacraments of confirmation and ordination by his consecration. He receives his power to govern and to teach in his diocese from the Pope. Now, if he receives the power to govern and to teach from the Pope, it's obvious that the Pope is superior to him. The Pope's got a power he hasn't got. And he receives from the powers that he can't receive from anywhere else. That's an inferiority. That's against equality. So Vatican II is going to lift the bishops to the level of the Pope, declaring, firstly, that they get their power to teach and to govern from their consecration, so that all three powers they got from their consecration, and they don't need anything from the Pope. And so the Pope loses his superiority over the bishops. The Pope is just a bishop of Rome. And that's how these jokers in Vatican, these conciliar popes treat themselves. You never hear Pope Francis calling himself Pope. All he calls himself is the Bishop of Rome. And he will pretend that all the other bishops are equal with him, but just step out of line with his nonsense. Try talking sense to Pope Francis. Oh boy, you're going to get it in the neck. Big time. And Pope Francis uses all his authority from yesterday to crush the good sense of yesterday and to promote the nonsense of today, which includes undermining his own authority. But boy, does he use his authority to undermine his authority. He uses every ounce of his authority, just like Bishop William. These liberals are ruthless authoritarians. Why? Because they're not governing for the truth. They're governing for their own will. Because they no longer got the truth. Is that before 4 o'clock or is it 20 past 4?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, okay. Therefore, you can see the same principle of democracy which you had at the beginning, the levelling down of authority, the levelling down of the boat to the level of the bishops, which is the most important. Then the bishop is levelled down to the priest. He's got to get a diocesan council, and the diocesan council will tell him what to do. Or, above all, the conference of bishops, the national conference of bishops, will tell him what to do in his diocese. So he's no longer king in his own diocese as he used to be. And then finally the priest will be levelled down to the level of the laity, and the parish council will tell, the modernist parish council will tell the local priest what to do. And the priest, and they will go to the bishop, he refuses to do it. And the Vatican II bishop will back the Vatican II laity against the old-fashioned priest, and so on and so on. Thus, New Church calls for the most indefinite possible definition. Now, how's that? An indefinite definition. A definition which doesn't define. A definition which doesn't set limits or fines. Finitio. De finitio. You set the limits, you set the frontiers, which define the thing to be what it is. France is defined as the country with those limits immediately below the English Channel. So, and opposite the greatest country in the world on the other side of the English Channel. So, the New Church calls for the most indefinite possible definition, which is communion. Because communion will be communion. 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 I feel the communion. So, the communion is wide open, and it includes all men, and it's wide open dialogue. The great act the great act inside the New Church will be dialogue. I dialogue with anybody and everybody. We never come to any conclusion because nobody's ever right and nobody's ever wrong. We're all just dialoguing. That's communion. So, that's what the New Church ends up as. We move into the last part, the fourth and last part, and this is a new religion. All of this amounts to a new religion. Calderon will argue, A, B, C, D, that we've got a new truth, we've got a new cult or new mass. Of course, 1969 was a new mass. We've got a new version of Christ. It's subtle, he says, in the Vatican documents, but it's there. And all of this adds up to a new religion. So firstly, a new truth. What are the sources of Vatican II? And the answer is, we've seen this. Revelation is not objectively knowable. It's a mystery which is only subjectively experienced, and therefore tradition must be living and evolve. Since subjective experience is prime over objective statements, objective definitions, objective dogmas, since the experience is prime, then if I cease to experience the incarnation of Christ, the incarnation of Christ ceases to exist in me. Therefore, all the great truths of the faith are dependent upon whether I drank green cheese or drank too much beer last night. The church becomes completely dependent upon cheese and beer. Or the church's truth becomes dependent on cheese and beer. wine, if you like. It's a mystery only, and therefore tradition must be living, and it must evolve. Therefore, the dogmas of the church are going to change with time. They're going to become different with time, according to what men feel and according to what they need. Therefore, the doctrine of the church is going to depend upon men's entrails. The church is going to depend upon people's guts. So this is a new truth to the Catholic Church. And it's in Deva. It's in one of the early documents of the Council. Because truth had to be undermined at the outset. Every false philosopher will begin by undermining the truth before he sets out his nonsense. They will all mock common sense. Then what's going to be what's the magisterium going to do? The church's teaching authority. It's communal experience of the mystery. We get together, and we all begin feeling, and we feel together, and maybe we lock elbows, and we rock and roll together, and suddenly emerges from the meeting what we all feel together. We feel that the Immaculate Conception is not true. Okay, that's the end of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. Next week we feel it is true, so it comes back, and so on and so on and so on. It's communal experience of the mystery, common to men, experience of men, nothing divine any longer. It's just all of us men and the movements of our entrails, the rocking and rolling of our guts. That's what makes the magisterium, the doctrine, the teaching authority of the church. And thus truth is submitted to freedom. Long live charismatics. So you can see we're directly into charismatics because it's now internal feelings and rocking and rolling that count. What is charismatics? It's exactly that. Charismatics is the one thing that's flourishing in today's church. And it's entirely in the logic of stripping away the real truth, stripping away the object, stripping away God, putting man at the top, and so his feelings and his guts, his mind is incapacitated by Kant, his mind is mush, therefore all that's left is feelings. And that's why the church is so effeminate. I wouldn't say feminine, but effeminate. Womanly in the wrong sense. Because the reason which is man's prerogative, is disqualified by Kant. It's been crippled, paralyzed, put out of action by Kant. Therefore the truth is submitted to freedom. It's no longer truth, you saw that earlier, it's freedom instead of truth. Now the new Mass. Father Calderon wrote, or was largely responsible for the writing of a not big book, about 15 years ago, coming out of the society when the society was still good, completely discrediting the new Mass and the doctrine of the Paschal Mystery. What's the Paschal Mystery do? The Paschal Mystery runs from Thursday to Sunday inclusive. And so you're blurring out the cross. The redemption and the guts of the Holy Week is Friday. No longer. Now it's all the way from Sunday to the Thursday. The Paschal Mystery. And Calderon wrote an excellent little book about that. I don't think you can still find it. Probably you can't still find it. It's one of those many books that the Society has now discarded because the Society has changed its doctrine. It's terrible. It's softened its doctrine just like Vatican II in order to fit in with Vatican II. Vatican II wanted to fit in with the world. The Society wants to fit in with the Conciliar Church. Terrible. Paul VI wanted to reconcile the world with the Catholic Church because he believed both in the world and in the Catholic Church, the modern world and the Catholic Church. Bishop Furley is a rerun of Paul VI. He wants to blend Catholic tradition with the Conciliar Church, which is just as bad. and just as unblendable. Vatican II is absolutely and intrinsically not Catholic. The whole thing's got to be thrown into the dustbin. What woman, knowing that there's a drop of poison in the cake, will feed even part of the cake, which she's assured is free of poison? Is she going to feed that to a child? Sure. The whole thing goes into the dustbin. The whole of Vatican II goes into the dustbin. It's all contaminated and suffused by these false ideas of man above God. So, the cross emptied out. Now here you've got another bunch of twisted arguments. I must put the time before me. God cannot suffer, it's perfectly true, in himself God. And so man's sins do not hurt him. That's completely false. God cannot suffer in his interior glory. He cannot change. He is one himself. He is totally and fully and infinitely glorious inside himself. But outside himself, in his creation, he can be glorified or unglorified. St. Ignatius' motto was ad maiorem Dei gloria, meaning to the greater glory of God, meaning to the greater external glory of God. Ignatius couldn't increase the interior glory of God, that would be changing God. But he can increase or decrease the exterior glory of God by promoting the Catholic religion, which he enormously did with his congregation, the Jesuits. Because a man's sins do not hurt him. I distinguish. Internally, no, but externally, yes. And therefore Christ had no debt to pay for them. Internally, no, but externally, yes. And so the cross was no redemptive sacrifice. These people dare to teach the cross is not a sacrifice. But the Father's love, saving us by the resurrection. And therefore you get no longer crucifixes, but resurrected fixes, in which our Lord is all happy and lovey, because he's going to heaven, because everything's nice. And no longer is there the nasty quaff with the nails and with the blood. No, that's all gone. And so the Mass is no longer the sacrifice, the representation of the sacrifice. The Mass is the rerun of the resurrection, making us all feel happy. And therefore the new Mass is happy. And the funerals are always in white vestments and never in black vestments. It's all logical. It's all entirely logical. In fact, the celebrating of Mass is, in the new doctrine, man's glorifying of man. When the new church celebrates Mass, it's man glorifying man. Now, does that make sense of what you observe today in a new church? Is there any opening on God? Is there any upward lift towards God, above man? Or is it all just human? It's all just human. Hi folks, I'm called Bob. Don't call me father-in-law, call me Bob. We're going to have a Eucharistic picnic together, and we're going to be happy-clappy, and we're going to have a good time, folks. Let's get clapping, everybody. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Who are we for? Jesus! We love Jesus. Right? That's the new religion. It is a new religion. Obviously it's a new religion. So, man's commemorating of man, for which God is indebted to man. Man is no longer indebted to God, but God is indebted to man. Because when man glorifies man, he's giving glory by extension to God. You go back to the original diagram. He's giving glory to God. So when man celebrates Mass, he's actually giving glory to God. And man thus grants glory to God, and God is in Mass in debt, puts God in debt to man. Again, man above God. It's diabolical, absolutely diabolical. So we've got a new Mass. We've got a new Christ. He's perfect man. The Son, the doctrine of Gaudium et Spes, the Son, God the Son, Jesus Christ, became man for man to become even more man. You laugh, you're dead right. It's absolutely laughable. If it wasn't so terribly sad. This is the destruction of millions of souls. This is flagrant heresy. And to bring to perfection the brotherhood of man. We've had liberty, equality, and now we've got fraternity. And fraternity is full blast in Gaudium et Spes, 28:32-45. However, is he still God? And Calderon will say there are whiffs in the text of Vatican II which say he isn't. He's no longer completely God. He's pretty much God, but not consubstantial with the Holy Ghost and the Father. Thus, the Son may be God only in a certain respect. Ad gentes, section 3. And in all the Vatican II texts, there is no mention of the hypostatic union. The hypostatic union is two big words, or at least one big word, hypostatic, 4 syllables, it's Greek. Oh, hypostatic, wow. All it means is that the union is in the person. The two natures remain distinct, but they're both the person who existed previously to the incarnation, just in the divine nature, is now subsisting also in the human nature. So the one person is subsisting in the two natures, and the two natures are united in the one person. That's the doctrine of the hypostatic union, the union in the person. No mention. That's a clear doctrine, the teaching, a clear teaching of the divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ, the direct divine nature of Jesus, as well as his human nature. But no mention of that clear definition in the doctrines of Vatican II, because the words are too clear, they're too precise, and they're too fixed. We don't like doctrines to be fixed or rigid. We like doctrines to be able to change with however much beer I drink and however much cheese I eat. Even green cheese, you know. Green cheese lights up my imagination, makes me, and then upsets my intros and it's like taking a drug. And when I'm drunk, I really see the things of God. I get God out of my bloodstream. Oh my, better laugh than cry. So we want a new religion. It all adds up to a new religion. As for dignity, in brief, merely because he has human nature, man is full of dignity. Whatever use he makes of that human nature, he can turn himself into the most villainous Jew or communist or Freemason possible. He's still full of dignity. It's true that he has a certain dignity still, but he's wrecked the dignity that he could have and should have of being a child of God, a son of Christ, and a Catholic. And that is wrecked. And he deliberately is wrecking. In fact, man is greater than God's. Man's dignity is greater than God's because God has no freedom to choose evil. Wow. God cannot choose evil. Therefore, man can choose evil. Therefore, man has got more freedom than God because freedom is measured not by the for, but by the from. Therefore, man has more freedom than God, therefore he's superior to God, he's got more dignity than God. And so Vatican II set up the religion of man as being in the image of God, that was the theory, but not himself God, and therefore Vatican II is the worship of a creature, which is idolatry. The Catholic religion is a religion of idolatry. Let's say, finish with 3 Hail Marys for the Pope. For Pope Francis. He needs the prayers even if he's off the wall. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Poor Pope Francis would pray in order that even if he doesn't get much better, let's pray that he doesn't at least get even worse. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
And we'll pray for Pope Francis because if the prayer is misdirected, Almighty God can put it in store for the next good Pope. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
And to bless him if you wish. Benedicere Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendas sobre vos et semper. Amen.